And here's why. The driving force in humans is the perceptual system. You're born with it. It's the one thing that we come into the world with, is a perceptual system. You know, our little minds haven't got anything in them yet. We do have an atavistic system down here, but we haven't had enough experience to even plug that in. And so what we've got is a perceptual system. And this system takes every part of our being, and in 30 milliseconds or less, which ain't much time, focuses it on whatever subject we are faced with, thinking about. What that includes is the cranium, the forepart of the mind where knowledge, communication, intelligence is. The cerebellum in the back of the mind, which is the memory, experiences that we've had and what we remember. Emotion in the heart, the intuition in the gut, our six senses. All of those are instantly brought into play. And that's indeed how humans live and survive. That's what we are. Unfortunately, most of this is subconscious. If it was conscious, we would have no time to do anything. We'd just respond to perception all the time. And every idea that crosses your mind, every object that crosses your visual plane gets a perceptual response because it has attracted your attention. Now, it's mostly subconscious, as I say, but nonetheless, that's going on. And so, when we do raise a perception to a conscious level, that to us is the facts. That's what our intelligence system, our receptor system tells us is real. And so, to just perception, get out of here. That's reality. And the goal of an organization is to take all of these people, each with their own perceptions, and somehow pull them together into a unified position on an issue. That's why it's so tough to do this anymore with mass media or publications, and why it's easier to do it through opinion leaders, because you see, they plug in the relationship side to bring people along whose perceptions might not at the beginning be in sync. Now that's a quick description, and I know, that's too fast, but let me see if I can, I'll use myself as an example of perceptions. When Pat introduced me this morning, what you were doing was forming your perceptions of me. You may have been doing this consciously. You probably were in this setting because you knew you had to put up with me all day and you wanted to know what you were in store for. And some of you said, oh my God, look at that checkered shirt. I got a brother-in-law who has one of those. He's a dingbat. This guy must be a dingbat. Others of you noticed different things. See? And some of you, I'm not sensitive about this, it can be right up front. I see some of you who didn't. But some of you said, that guy is really getting bald, right? That's what you said. You didn't, but I mean, everybody, you didn't either, but everybody else thought that, see? Now, that is your perception, right? Now, let me tell you what the facts are. The facts are that I am a hair transplant donor. But see what you did when I told you the facts? And that's exactly what happens when we get into these fact wars. The other people just don't believe it. And so if you're going to have an opinion leader program, if you're going to reach out to these people, remember, it begins by listening first for their perceptions. Don't shoot your mouth off until you find out their perceptions. Where are they coming from? Because then you can have an interaction that isn't fact bombs back and forth. Whereas if you come out, I'm bad at this. I have to watch myself. Because I'm likely to start the conversation saying, wow, how about that? Well, right away, you see, I may have stiffened the resistance. At least I've stated a position. Not only that, but it's better manners. It's more respectful to other people to say, how do you feel about this? And so what I'm trying to train myself to do is first get the word fact out of my vocabulary, because it's a loaded word. Instead, I want to talk about data. And now I can go to a person that I know is totally opposed to my position. And I can say, Charlie, I got this new data. Look at this. What do you make of this? See? And Charlie will interpret the data as he sees it, and I'll say, no, that's really interesting. Now, I didn't see it that way at all. Let me tell you how I interpret it, and notice what's happened already. Charlie and I are having a perfectly friendly, rational discussion around the data. It's no fact bombs, and we therefore probably can find some areas where we agree and can work together, or at least we can agree to keep discussing it, because nobody's mad, nobody's got bent out of shape by the other person's position. Now, if Charlie's a zealot, that may be all over, but I don't want to deal with him anyway, you see. But I think you get the point. I mean, this whole business of respecting people's perceptions and of understanding that they are indeed the reality on which the human world works. And so putting them down as some kind of bad thing is just showing ignorance of human nature, which is, of course, why Washington does it. They are ignorant of human nature. So, well, they are, by and large. They're operating on some ideas that, went out a long time. Let's talk about a couple other things about opinion leaders. They truly are subject by subject. Most people can be opinion leaders on maybe one or at most two subjects, or maybe two or three closely related subjects. But there are no one-size-fits-all opinion leaders anymore, so you got to find them, as I said, who have an interest in your subject and who are opinion leaders in your subject. Used to be there were people who were opinion leaders, just kind of general opinion leaders in an earlier, less sophisticated time. There was that wonderful guy in American history who was sort of a counselor to presidents. He was a big New York financier. His name was Bernard Baruch, Barney Baruch. Some of you may have heard of Barney. He was he was a multi-millionaire, but his phony act was that he was a man of the people. So every day he would bring his lunch in a little brown bag. I'm sure his chauffeur probably brought it to him. And then he went up to Central Park and he had this bench. And Barney would sit on the bench. And everybody would come, the politicians and businessmen and the media. And they'd ask Barney's opinion on anything. And he was sort of like Greenspan written large, He had an opinion on everything. In fact, if you go to Central Park, you can see Barney's bench. It's been bronzed over and it has a plaque on it. This is where Barney sat and did his stuff. And literally people would listen to him on almost any subject. Consider today, 85% of U.S. Catholics disagree on a number of important subjects with the Pope. Well, so much for universal opinion leadership. It's just not there. It's just not there anymore. So you got to. Now, sometimes we fool ourselves. There was a period, particularly in healthcare. Healthcare is an example here. There was a period when if C. Everett Koop said something, that was it, Buster. The end. And then he let those people start the website in his name, and as if fortunes went down and down and down, Ev's all-purpose opinion leadership kind of dissipated. But don't look for somebody who's a silver bullet to solve your problems. Now, is it possible that there's opinion leadership that could be in, say, a media person or in a publication? It's possible. As I said, if you're a gung-ho progressive and you read Mary McGrory or Dave Broder, they can probably be an opinion leader for you. Remember, you already agree with them to start with. They're not going to change your mind. But they can lead you on certain subjects. I would say that maybe Consumers Reports, to some people, may be a sort of an opinion leader thing because, they do research, they're totally impartial. There's no personality in it. You don't even know who wrote the article or did the test. So it's possible, but by and large, it's a local thing. It's based on individuals talking to other individuals, and we just need to face up to that fact. Well, one more thing. Now we're going to talk about how you do this. I said that we were looking for people's behaviors. One of the reasons to have an opinion leader program is that it fits what we know about motivating behaviors. Let me just take a couple of minutes. That's literally all it'll take, and I'll give you a handout about it, and then we'll take a break. And then we'll talk about some programs for the hour and a quarter we have after that. For a long time, we thought behavior was motivated by what we call the domino theory. Some of you who studied in the field may remember the domino theory. The idea was, if you could get some information out to people, you can see where this goes back to the old days, but if you can get information to people, what happens psychologically when any of us receives information is that we form an opinion around that. I mean, that's just automatic. I believe it, I don't believe it, I like it, I don't like it. It's good, it's bad, whatever. And so if you could get information out to people, and they would form an opinion, and then if you could get that information out to them more than once, so they had to form this opinion 2 or 3 times, humans get lazy pretty quickly. And so what they did was they hardened that opinion into an attitude. They were tired of going through this process again. And that's what an attitude is. An attitude is stored up opinion. I've already had this opinion, and now you're asking me again. Pretty soon it's an attitude. I don't need to think anymore. I just answer right away. No, yes, whatever. Well, the idea was that if attitudes then were our stored up opinions, it followed that clearly attitudes motivated behavior. I mean, it's certainly logical. There's only one thing wrong. How many logical people do you know? I mean, they're boring. People are not supposed to be logical. Illogical decision-making is the only way to run an organization. Because otherwise you're running it as if the people in it weren't human. So it just doesn't work, literally. So once you look at this, you realize it isn't true. And when the scholars of behavior in the 1960s, a famous group known as the behaviorist psychologists, when they looked at this, they said, this is a joke. It's not true at all. Behavior, they said, is situational. It depends on the environment of the moment. Now think about it. If you're dubious of this, just watch your own behavior. Do you behave the same way out carousing with the gang on Friday night as you do after church services on whatever your Sabbath day is? If you do, please take me to your church, synagogue, or mosque. That must be quite an experience. Do you even behave the same way at a symphony as you would at a rock concert? We don't like people dancing in the aisles at my symphony. It doesn't go with Beethoven. It's just wrong somehow. So you see, even in things like that, it is indeed situational. In fact, today, the best scholarship we have is that people behave according to the sense of the moment, and they rationalize their attitudes to fit their behavior. One thing humans are very good at is rationalization, making it come out okay in the end. Well, if that's true and that doesn't work, how then do you motivate behaviors? We need behaviors from these people. We need these people to do things that will help us be successful and help them keep a very good Social Security system. Here's what we know. A new behavioral model has arisen. This is the ultimate behavior, the desired behavior that we would like to motivate people toward. How do you get there? Well, once again, it begins with awareness. So keep writing those crappy columns and doing any of that stuff. Anybody you can make aware, that's great. Problem. We still have a myth from over there that if you make them aware, they'll run right over to the behavior. This is absolutely rare. Now, you know, if you live in hurricane country and you get a phone call or you hear on the radio or something, we think a hurricane is coming. Hey, that's all you need. You're going to go. You'll behave. But I mean, that's a very unusual situation. On anything we're talking about, this is exceedingly rare. That 2% of innovators might do it, except that they're probably way over here doing something else anyway. What does happen is this. The psychologists tell us that if you hold an idea in your mind for 30 seconds or longer, don't ask me where they get these measurements of 30 seconds. That's just what the research says. Anybody who holds an idea in your head for about 30 seconds or longer, immediately your IBM up here opens a file automatically on that idea. You start collecting data around that idea. We call this latent readiness. You are deciding your latent readiness to do a behavior not to do a certain behavior.